record the session. Thank you. Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome again to a LaSalle Sustainability Lecture. We meet today to discuss the topic Sustainable Futures, the relationship between human rights and environmental governance. But before we begin, let us start our program with a prayer. Please direct your attention to the screen for our video.
Let me be the change I want to see, to do with strength and wisdom all that needs to be done, and become the hope that I can be. Set me free from my fears and hesitation. Granted courage and humility. Fill me with spirit to face the challenge and start the change I long to see. Today I start the change I want to see. Even if I'm not the light, I can be the spark in faith, service, and communion. Let us start the change we want to see, the change that begins in me. Today I start the change I want to see.
Even if I'm not the light,
Even if I'm not the light, I can be the spark. Faith, service, and communion. Let us start the change we want to see, the change that begins in me.
Jesus in us.
Jesus in us.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. It's my pleasure to welcome all of you to this month's edition of the Sustainability Lecture Series. This lecture series is a joint initiative of the International Association of LaSalle Universities, or IALU, and De La Salle University. The series was launched in January 2021 to provide a platform to share sustainability-related initiatives done by different resource persons and teams in the different institutions that make up the global IALU network. Nearly 4 years on, this lecture series is still going strong. And the initial team, consisting of Professor Dr. Kathleen Aviso, the current Dean of the Gokong Wei College of Engineering, Professor Dr. Alvin Colaba, the Director of the Center for Engineering and Sustainable Development Research, Chancellor Emeritus Dr. Carmelita Quebenco, and myself has since grown, and part of the team now includes Professor Dr. Aris Ubando of the Gokongwei College of Engineering, our former PhD student and faculty member at the University of the Philippines, Los Baños, Dr. Maria Victoria Nigo Sumagang, and the entire team of the University Sustainability Office of the LSU, led by Executive Director Antonio Nonoy Maralit. This lecture series is envisioned to continue to provide a platform for our joint work, inspired partly by St. Francis's Laudato Si encyclical in 2015, coupled with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Understanding our joint stake in the future and the challenges that face sustainable development, it is incumbent upon the global LaSallian community to share our knowledge and expertise and help drive green growth, not just within the LaSallian community, but for the entire planet as well. Thank you, and I hope you find today's lecture to be very stimulating. Have a good day.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tan. We just heard Professor Dr. Raymond Tan, the Vice President for Research and Innovation of De La Salle University, Manila, Philippines. Thank you very much. Now, I will introduce our speaker for today, Magali Zoe Robles Vargas. Magali is a sophomore student majoring in law with an emphasis in North America's law system at the University University La Salle, Chihuahua, Mexico. Her academic interests include gender equality, global politics, sustainable development, and language studies. She has experience in team leadership, debate, and project management. She secured second place in the Interfacultades debate competition and served as a president of the Student Council. Magali has participated in international diplomacy and leadership through the Change the World MUN and earned an honorable mention, the Sixth Committee Legal at the UN headquarters in New York, USA. Her focus on human rights and social justice supports her goal to pursue a career in international law, and her presentation today is entitled Sustainable Futures, the Relationship Between Human Rights and Environmental Governance. Please join me in welcoming our speaker, Magali Zoe Robles Vargas.
Thank you, guys. A pleasure to be with you tonight. Are we able to see the presentation?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can see it.
Awesome. Thank you. Good morning for you guys. I'm Magali Zoe Robles Vargas, like mentioned before. First of all, I would like to apologize for the background noise. My plane got delayed and a couple of things, so I'm right now in the airport in a restaurant, in the corner of a restaurant. So also I'm gonna be drinking some tea because I'm a little sore throat. But aside from that, I would just like you to know me a little bit more. I am 20 years old. I just turned 20 in the Philippines. I just arrived to Mexico after a month in your country. It was the best experience I could ever live. I was there for the YALU Leadership Summer Program. Me and 6 other Mexicans were the representatives of our country. And then I stayed another week to give conferences to universities, including CSAP and others. And I talked about leadership. And in this time, I'm going to talk to you about the relationship between human rights and environmental governance. If you have any questions, just let me know. You can raise the little emoji hand, or you can just activate your microphone and it's all going to be okay. So as you saw, this is the abstract that was sent through the mail. I'm going to read it for you guys just so everybody's on the same page. So this presentation examines the complex relationship between human rights and environmental degradation. It analyzes the impact of environmental harm on vulnerable populations. particularly in developing countries where inadequate governance and insufficient international support exacerbate human rights violations. The role of international law and frameworks is promoting environmental justice and sustainability is also explored. Generation C plays a significant role in shaping environmental discourse, contributing both positively and negatively to the sustainability agenda. Effective international cooperation, access to justice, and accountability mechanisms are essential for addressing these challenges and upholding human rights. A nuanced approach balancing economic developments with environmental protection and human rights consideration is necessary. By investigating these interactions, this presentation aims to contribute to informed policy and practice promoting a more just and sustainable future. Ultimately, it seeks to advance our understanding of the relationship between human rights, environmental governance, and sustainable development. Any questions so far, guys? All good? We go to the next slide. So this is the first subject we're going to discuss, environmental harms, impact on vulnerable population. So the subject introduction. Let's start by examining the devastating consequences of environmental harm on the most vulnerable population, including the poor, indigenous communities, and those living in areas prone to natural disasters. The UN reports that 80% of climate change impacts hit the poorest 20% of the population. Exacerbating poverty. Vulnerable groups face 3 times higher displacement risks due to environmental disasters. For example, in 2022, 32.6 million were displaced due to climate-related events. Protecting vulnerable populations from environmental harm is a matter of human rights and dignity, requiring urgent attention and action. This topic is closely related to SDG 10, which is reduce inequalities, and SDG 13, which is climate action, highlighting the need to address disparities and ensure climate justice for all. So you can see kind of how the presentation is going to go. I usually do an introduction of the subject, so why I chose this subject, a little statistics, numbers that I do have all the the links and all the information. If you need it, you can just ask for it, and then I can send it to you. And well, the SDGs that would impact on this. The next subject is international law and environmental justice. Before I get into this, going back to the last one, just real quick. Of course, as a Mexican and you guys as Filipinos, you can understand the severity of this issue because we're both underdeveloped countries, which the Philippines is more prone to natural disasters, and our legal system is almost doing not so much to prevent or to protect those vulnerable communities. In my case, in Mexico, we have the Sierra Madre Occidental, which is mountains where indigenous communities live. And due to the harm of the environmental atmosphere, we're burning. The trees are simply not growing anymore because it's so dry, and the government is not doing anything to look forward for it. So those communities lose their house, lose their town, everything they've made because of this. In my stay in the Philippines, I got to experience. We went to a province, and we were walking around. Right now, I cannot remember the name, but they showed us where a river was, and it was low tide, and they told us how high tides would simply submerge everything underwater. So these people would have to constantly be rebuilding their whole lives, not just their houses, because of the lack of effort the government is putting on the situation. Now moving on to the subject. So international law, environmental justice. Subject introduction. Next, we'll explore the crucial role of international law in promoting environmental justice, ensuring that countries are held accountable for their environmental actions and commitments. The Paris Agreement, signed by 195 countries, aims to limit warming to 1.5 degrees Notably, 71% of countries have embedded environmental rights in their constitution, showing growing legal recognition. The Escazú Agreement in Latin America is a key regional example. International law provides a framework for holding countries accountable for their environmental actions, ensuring a more just and sustainable future. This topic is directly linked to SDG 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions, emphasizing the importance of just and accountable institutions for environmental governance. So, as we can see, United States, China, major um, they're constantly contributing to climate pollution and climate change, but they don't get nearly as affected as the countries that we produce what they end up selling or distributing. For example, in Mexico, we have a lot of treaties with China. We do their work for them. So we have all these industries in Mexico which create pollution for us, but we don't get the monetary recognition or anything considering healthcare, etc. So we have to aim for the countries responsible for this to have consequences, and we need their harmful actions for the rest of the countries. So this one is where we're gonna expand a little bit more. I'm gonna talk about some facts and then my personal experience. So this is influence on environmental discourse. So we'll now shift our focus to the powerful influence of Generation Z in shaping environmental discourse, driving demands for sustainability, and pushing for climate actions. This demographic, born between 1997 and 2012, is emerging as a key driver of environmental activism and change. Globally, 75% of Gen Z considers climate change a major concern, driving demands for actions. 62% are willing to adjust consumption habits, indicating potential for behavior shifts. This demographic is pivotal in pushing for greener policies. 1 second. So we're going to talk about characteristics of Gen Z's environmental influence. Right now, we're going to talk about the good side that we have. So we have digital natives. Gen Z is the first generation to grow up with internet and social media, enabling them to mobilize and spread awareness about environmental issues rapidly. So right now, because we all have a phone attached to our hands, it's more easy to understand what's going on in the other side of the world just through a TikTok, for example, or an Instagram reel. We have more access to this, which this provokes empathy and trying to improve this. We also have a global perspective. Gen Z has a global outlook, recognizing their interconnectedness of environmental challenges and the need for collective actions. And third, activism and advocacy. This generation is known for its activism, with many members participating in climate strikes, protests, and advocacy campaigns to demand actions from leaders. So as I mentioned before, we do have a wider perspective for this, which is an issue with some governments for their sovereignty with terms of digital sovereignty. But I do consider that us having access to what's happening in the other side of the world without going through some political filter is necessary to maintain the real news up. And activism and advocacy, well, we are the generation that is trying in the most way possible to change this, having a 62% willing to adjust. So that's more than half, which is crucial for wanting us to get better sustainability. We have to all be willing to do something. It cannot only be a few of us. In sadder news, Gen Z spending power is substantial, approximately 450 billion, with an expected growth to 12 trillion by 2030. However, this demographic propensity for overconsumption, particularly in fashion industries. Sorry. Versus concern. Key statistics illustrating this trend include 75% of Gen Z purchase art in the fashion sector. So who here is Gen Z aside from me? Do we have any Gen Zs or who has kids who are Gen Z or cousins? So you have a familiar Kathleen. Who else? See if I can see it. Okay, well, not many, but we can all agree and we can all understanding that, for example, Shein has taken over because of the fast fashion, and it's just over and over and over consumption over again. So 46% of Gen Z spend on fashion, more on fashion than any other category. That's insane. 46%. So they spend more in clothes than in food. So Gen Z is 2.6 times more likely to purchase clothes weekly compared to other generations. These figures underscore the need for sustainable consumption practices within this demographic, encouraging 80% of Gen Zs opt for second-hand purchases and 36 do so out of environmental concerns. Our activism and demand for actions can pursue governments and corporations to adopt more sustainable practices and policies, ultimately driving a faster transition to a greener future. This topic aligns with SDG 12, responsible consumption and production, highlighting the role of youth in promoting sustainable lifestyle and consumption patterns. So in this, I will be guilty for this because I think we have more access due to the technology to just buy something and not think of where it's going to end up. So we have the three R's, right? Reuse, reduce, and recycle. And the fourth R that I heard a minute ago is refuse. So if we start refusing to buy things that we know will be able to be they are going to end up in the landfill. There's no sustainable way of getting rid of it. Let's just refuse buying it. So, of course, we're speaking from privilege here. I understand my privilege as middle, upper class Mexican, where I have access to these type of issues, right? I can decide which brand I buy, if it's cotton, if it's polyester, but understanding that not many people have this opportunity, we can just keep that being mindful and refuse as much as possible to overconsumption. So now we have international cooperation and accountability. Moving forward, we'll examine the vital importance of international cooperation and accountability in tackling global environmental challenges, requiring collective action and shared responsibility. The SDG index tracked progress, showing 64% of countries are on track for SDG 13, which is climate action. Collaborative efforts can slash greenhouse gas emissions by 45% by 2030, underscoring the power of joint actions. The EU Green Deal is a leading example for this. Global environmental challenges require collective action and shared responsibility to achieve meaningful impact. This topic is closely linked to SDG 17, Partnership for Goals, emphasizing the importance of global cooperation and partnership to achieve sustainable development. Let me drink water. Okay, so as mentioned before, in this summer program that I went to, I had the privilege to assist. It was a YALU program. So we were all from different countries. It was, I think, 6 or 7 countries. And my team came to this idea that we should do something yearly, all the 7 schools. So a volunteer green day. This is still an idea up in the air, but I just want to share with you just so you know that we're trying to do something. And if you have any ideas, that would be really beneficial. It will be the first Wednesday of every October, considering that September and October are the silent months. And it would just be a day of volunteering. Because if we take advantage of the time difference that we have, it would cover almost 48 hours. So 48 hours, LaSallian students all over the globe volunteering, helping. It could be going to a dog shelter or helping the homeless, going to the blood bank or cleaning up the streets. So I think we need to start doing this all LaSallian schools, right? Let's start small, then go big. This will impact meaningfully because it's not just going to be one, it's going to be 1,000 of us. So this one is policy strategies for integrating human rights and environmental governance. So subject introduction. Next, we'll delve into the policy strategies necessary for integrating human rights consideration into environmental governance frameworks, ensuring a more just and sustainable approach. 83% of countries have national climate policies with human rights elements, reflecting growing integration. However, only 42 align fully with international human rights frameworks, indicating room for improvement. Strengthening these links is crucial for just outcomes. Integrating human rights into environmental governance ensures that policies protect both people and the planet, promoting just and sustainable outcomes. This topic aligns with SDG 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions, highlighting the need for just and accountable institutions that integrate human rights and environmental consideration. Okay, so only 42% align. I really enjoy having my numbers well known. That's why you can see like a pattern here, because I think it's more clear for me when I see a number, right? Statistics. It's easier for us to digest as humans. So that's why I decided to show it like this. I think indicating room for improvement means that we have a lot to do, right? We have plenty of room to grow. And I think that we need to find a middle ground between not killing the planet or killing people by protecting the planet, vice versa, you know? So finding a middle ground is going to be key for this, and it will help us create a sustainable future. I would do this by firstly taking a look at the constitutions of our countries. In Mexico, we have a lot of legal gaps that industries take advantage of that end up harming people and the planet, of course, and benefiting them. So I think starting by just taking a look, reading your constitution. I know the Philippines, I took a look at it. I don't know if I'm right, but I think it's like 28 um 28 parts and then some sections within it. I'm not sure, but every person who has the ability to read, I think it should be important for us to read our constitution and then from there see what strategies we could improve or what gaps the government is making this intentionally. For last, we have this subject, which is pathway to sustainable futures. This topic involves charting a course towards a world that balances economic growth, social equality, and environmental protection. This pathway requires transformative changes and collectively actions to achieve a sustainable future for all. Achieving sustainability future means addressing key challenges like poverty, inequality, and climate change. This pathway involves implementing the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and its 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Transformative actions such as transitioning to renewable energy, promoting sustainable consumption, and fostering inclusive economy growth are crucial for this pathway. Achieving sustainable future requires transformative changes that lift people out of poverty. promote economy growth, and protect the environment. This topic is directly connected to the SDG 2030 agenda as a whole, with all the 17 SDGs, particularly number 8, decent work and economic growth, 13, climate action, and number 1, no poverty, aiming for a holistic pathway to sustainable futures. Aside from this, I don't know if you guys have any questions for the presentation. The next part is just going to be discussing about the experience at the MUN. We're good? Okay, so this was me. It hasn't even been a year from this, so I'm still a little shocked by the experience. I apologize for my English lately, but just doing the change to Spanish again, then English again has been a little hard, but I think we're good. So this was me. I was representing the Maldives with my partner Pavel from Mexico as well. I was in the J6 legal committee, and this happened really weirdly. I had a dream where I was in the UN, woke up, and then I saw an ad about it on Instagram. So I signed up, and the process for getting ready for this was really hard because it was my first MUN. I don't know why I decided to go to the UN for my first Model UN, but I think it was just a one life opportunity and I did. So I decided to take this adventure. We got the topic and our countries 3 weeks before the event. 3 weeks, which I think was not enough time to prepare. But for 3 months, 4 months, sorry, we were taking courses with staff from the Change the World Moon just to prepare for this event. So we discussed a little bit about everything, SDGs and depth, why, how did they become a thing, why 2030, all of this. And then we also had the opportunity to learn about other countries, also in depth. I read so many constitutions, so many. And all the international treaties and all of this, which just made us really, really heavy experience academically, managing this, getting ready for this, and also school, midterms, law, midterms was not the best experience, but overall it was amazing. So after this, we flew there, me and another classmate. He's not my classmate, but we go to the same university from La Salle, Chihuahua. We were the only ones from the north of Mexico going, and then there were two others from the south of Mexico, center south. So it was total 4 of us that we still live in Mexico, and others 6 or 7 that were living in Spain, United States, and Brazil. So it was only a couple of us, and we got there, and all the activities were just really, really good, immersive. We got to be at the UN headquarters, which was a really wonderful experience. And during the days of the Model UN, we simply just discussed a little bit more about how the UN works and why it's important for us young people to get involved in this. We, as the Maldives, used by a base the SDG number 6, 11, 12, and 14. And I got an honorable mention at the end of the Model UN due to the good representation we did of this country. So, sorry. So we had this opportunity to do. I don't know if you guys have any other questions or anything else you want me to add. If not, I think we're good on time. Literally like 27 minutes. If not, we could simply just go to the open forum or Q&A, however you call it.
Thank you very much for the insightful presentation, Nagali.
Thank you.
Um, We now move on to the question and answer portion. And we invite our participants for some questions to our speaker. But while we wait for some questions, I have a question, Magali. You highlighted the uh, particular vulnerability of populations in developing countries to environmental harm and noting inadequate governance and insufficient international support exacerbate human rights violation. Can you elaborate on specific examples or types of environmental harm that have the most direct and severe impact on human rights in this context? And how does the lack of governance specifically amplify these issues?
Yeah, of course. Well, the main one you can see in most Latin American countries is lack of um, just care from the government when it comes to deforestation, because we are simply getting the trees taken out, and it's just such a rapid amount. And why? Because the government doesn't want to make laws for this. So right now in Latin America we have this issue, and all of the countries are the populations are speaking up, not the government. We have talked with the government a couple of times about this issue, but there's no answer. So this is a direct example of how lack of care, simply care of the government, is affecting the indigenous communities in this case, that are the people that lived among us within the forest and the green areas. But also, for example, in the Philippines, you guys, the water, there's no regulation for that use. It's still available for people to make their houses in places that is harmful for them, or that they can be injured because they don't have access to. I don't want to say education, but to know that something could happen there, or they just know and they just cannot afford anything better. And that's a direct action from the government. Direct unaction, lack of action, because they're not doing anything to prevent this. So it's just affecting mostly the poor. I'm not saying it doesn't affect the rich, but it affects the rich in a way, way less scale as the poor. I don't know if I answered your question with that.
Yeah. Um, so Magali, thank you so much for that. Another question, I think we have a question from our participant, Kevin Serona. So he asked, what are some metrics, indicators on how environmental justice is monitored or tracked in environmental programs?
I'm just going to read the question again. I don't have a direct answer for that, but I do know that the UN is actively updating their statistics and numbers on the environmental justice and on the dignified life. So those two could pair up with answering your question. I'm not sure for an international number statistics aside from the ones that the UN provide.
Okay. Thank you so much, Magali, for your response. We have a question from Dr. Carmelita Quebenco. So she mentions, thank you, Ms. Zoe, for your interesting presentation. We appreciate you joining us today, and I hope you encourage other students in your university with research on sustainability to join as a resource speaker, just like you did today. I wish you all the best.
Well, I appreciate you a lot, Dr. Carmelita. Yes, this is new to me. I'm 20 years old, so I'm barely learning, trying to grab all the information I can from everywhere. I think I don't know anything at all, but I'm still learning. And yes, I had the opportunity. I don't know if you were here from the start, but I had the opportunity to go give conferences in the Philippines about leadership. and then leadership Lassallean way. So that of course includes sustainability. And thank you. Any
Okay,
other
we have a
questions?
question from
Yes.
Dr. Aviso. Dr. Kathleen, go
Yes,
ahead.
hello Zoe. Thank you so much for the lecture. And it's really refreshing to hear about your perspective, to hear the perspective of someone who's from the Gen Z, as you would say. Yeah, based on your experience and also in your perspective, it's interesting to understand better. What do you think would encourage the Gen Z to take note more of this sustainability issues that we have? What would be most helpful to bring it into their awareness and really encourage them to take action to address this different sustainability issues that we have?
For me, if you would have asked me this 2, 3 years ago, I would say broadcasting, speaking up about it. But now I think thanks to the algorithm we live in and the fast way we get news and then just new news, I think the empathy has gone low a little bit. For me, I would say volunteer work. Nothing is gonna do it like you being there, doing things with your own hands and seeing the impact that can have in the community. Literally, I cannot express this enough. I've been doing volunteer work since I was this big, this big. My grandparents have a ranch in the province we're from, and it's so clean because every single day is take care of the trash, do the simple things that Gen Z were growing ups now, in a way. Education has to be implemented through volunteer work, in my perspective. I think simply just going donating blood and then seeing the impact that that blood is going to change a life, or going to a shelter, taking care of older people, elderlies, of course. I think those things are gonna help bring back empathy, which I think this generation is lacking a little bit, and then not so much. It's black and white here, but I think volunteer work, cleaning up the streets you live in, starting there, starting small, and then aiming for bigger, I think it's ideal.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Kathleen and Magali. I have another question. Uh, what do you see as the greatest strengths and weakness of current international legal mechanism in effectively protecting human rights in the face of environmental degradation?
I think it's doing a really good job in inclusivity. I think we're grabbing everything and everyone, and there's no much discrimination from my perspective, or I think it has improved a lot, including all the communities, LGBTQ, indigenous communities, everything that was supposed before to be set apart. I think right now the international organizations we're hugging all of them and making everybody feel important and taking care of everybody's sustainability development in a way. Like we're just including them now, which I think is a big step. And I think taking action is what's lacking the most. I think we have a lot of good ideas and a good amount of proposes. I don't know if that's the correct word, but a lot of things we could be doing, but I don't know if we're actioning as fastly and as quickly as we could, considering that the world is begging for help. And also taxing the rich. The billionaires are not getting taxed, and they're the ones who provoke most of the impact we have in the environment, not the middle lower class. It's the billionaires.
Mhm.
So I think if the international organizations would put their attention into this, with that amount of money from the taxes, just imagine billionaires, right? Wow, we could be doing so much more. But I think those three. I think we're now being a little bit more inclusive, which I think huge step. And then for the two things, taking action and then taxing the billionaires. millionaires are the rich.
Thank you, Magali. I have one last question.
Yeah,
Uh,
go
if
ahead.
if you could recommend one overarching policy shift or a new framework based on your research into complex relationship between human rights and environmental governance, what would it be? And why do
Sorry,
you
could you
believe
repeat
it would
that?
be
Because
most
you're cutting a
impactful?
little bit off. I don't know if you could repeat that, please.
Okay, sorry for that. If you could recommend one overarching policy shift or a new framework based on your research into complex relationship between human rights and environmental governance, what would it be?
Tough question. Necessary though. It's because I want to say everything, but I know that's not even that ideal. You know what I mean? Oof. I think there's a big gap in the legal system, every legal system available that we have in the whole wide world with relationship into the indigenous people. For me, that's a
Mm,
really, really strong thing that we're violating directly their human rights, right? So I think if we could maybe just because there's a lot of laws, there's so many international treaties about this, there's articles about this, but there's no action. So I think um, not letting pass the violations of indigenous people's rights, I think it's something that we could start with and something that is not actively being done in my perspective.
Thank you for that
Uh,
insight and also covering the indigenous people. We have a question in our chat box from Jo Marie Echano. In the
yes,
urgent pursuit of sustainable futures, how can we ensure the environmental governance prioritizes and protects the most vulnerable communities whose human rights are often disproportionately impacted by the climate change and ecological degradation?
that's a really good question. Um, I would start with trying to educate and inform people as much as possible because if people are informed about their rights and about what they deserve, I'm not going to show that they're immediately going to get that, but they know their rights now. So when people know their rights, it's a huge difference. I'm going to give a little side story about this. It kind of comes in relevance. So in my last year of high school, I was already like right in my under law of subjects, and one of them we went to do a volunteer work to a school, and it was a really really poor school. Kids would go days without eating, and it was really bad. So we went and did a little bit of what we could, and after we covered their basic needs firstly, because I think nobody can learn with an empty stomach, we talked to them and told them about the right to have a name. And it's unreal because we have names, right? We have a legal. I have my passport here. I am someone. I have an identity, legal identity. But people that are in poor conditions, they're born and they die, and the law didn't even know of their existence, which that immediately violates the right to so many things. One of them in Mexico, I don't know how it works in the Philippines, but one is the right to have a name. So we went and talked to them about it. Some kids, it was a really unofficial school, you know. It was just a couple of teachers that had some time and love, and they went to teach these kids. And some kids didn't even have a birth certificate. So telling them they were older kids, they were like 12 to 14, that gives them an idea of what they have to be asking for from the government. So for me, education when it comes to every age, but mostly in this formative ages is ideal. So answering the question, I would say education, starting by educating, informing people of our rights. This will lead for us to request from the government and have an idea of what they're doing wrong, because ignorance is the tool government uses. So if we try to fight this by educating ourselves and then spreading as much as possible this information, I think that's going to be um, a good start. And also, I've been recommending this to my friends a lot because literally just going up and speaking, like record a video of the issue that's going on in your country. Go record a video and send it to your mayor. Like, oh, this place doesn't have running water, or this place doesn't have access to light. Doing these type of things is going to apply pressure, slow pressure, really, really slow pressure. But if you have a watermelon and you put a rubber band, it's not going to explode. But if you start putting a lot of rubber bands, it's going to explode someday. So I think just um, talking about it, informing, and education is how I would answer that question. I don't know if you have any further questions, Jeremy.
Okay, thank you so much, Magali, for answering that question. I think that's all the time that we have for the question and answer portion. So thank you so much, Magali. At this point, we would present now the certificate of appreciation. So allow me to read the certificate of appreciation. So the certificate of appreciation is awarded to Ms. Magali Zoe Robles Vargas, resource speaker, in grateful acknowledgement of her valuable contribution as a resource speaker in the LaSalle Sustainability Lecture Series. The topic Sustainable Futures, the relationship between human rights and environmental governance, given this 30th day of July 2025, signed by Professor Alvin B. Colaba, Director of the Center for Engineering and Sustainable Development Research, and Professor Raymond R. Tan, Vice President for Research and Innovation of De La Salle University, Manila, Philippines. So again, we would like to thank you, Ms. Magali Zoe Vargas, for that engaging and insightful presentation on sustainable futures, the relationship between human rights and environmental governance. May I invite our participants to give a round of applause to our speaker. Thank you so much, Magali. To our attendees, thank you for joining us today for the LaSalle Sustainability Lectures. Your presence and participation are vital to fostering this important discussions. And for us to
Thank you, guys.
further improve our delivery, we would request your feedback through the QR code shown in the screen. Okay, this concludes our program for today. On behalf of De La Salle University and International Association of La Salle Universities, thank you once again, and we look forward to seeing you at next month's event.
Thank you,
Thank
guys. A
you,
pleasure being with you.
everyone. Thank you, Zoe.
Thank you, Zoe. Thank you, everyone.